Hello, I'm Grayson Gambrell, and I want to talk to you today about Elijah coming first. You know, there are many things I believe yet to happen that I've read in the Bible before the final coming of Christ and the final end where Christians go to be with Jesus forever in heaven, and non-Christians go to hell. And so there's a lot yet to happen. And one thing yet to happen is that, and it's a sign for all of us, is that Elijah should come first. Now, the Jews, they have a tradition at Passover. They open a door, many of them, for Elijah to come in. And they know that it's a sign before Jesus comes back, or their Messiah, which is Jesus. But so it comes to the fact that in the Scripture they know that Elijah has to come first. Now, why? Jesus spoke about this, that Elijah should come first. And he says in Mark 9:11, they asked him, saying, "Why is it the scribes say that Elijah must come first?" And he says to them, or he said to them, Elijah does come first and restore all things. And yet, how is it written of the Son of Man that he will suffer many things and be treated with contempt? So he says Elijah does first come and restore all things. So Jesus said that. Now a little background about Elijah, and then I'll go on to my explanation of why Elijah comes first and more about that. In 1 Kings 17 and 18, it talks about Elijah and the many things he did. He was a great prophet. He prayed and withheld rain from the earth, or God did, because of his prayer, for around 3.5 years. And just think of his the faith required to cause something like that, for God to answer his prayer to withhold rain. And in James it talks about he was a man of like passion just like us, and yet he had great faith to pray. And so that's an encouragement that we can have, that there's power in prayer, that on the other end of your prayer that he answers if you have faith. And one example is Elijah praying that it's not rain. He raised the son of a widow, and also during this famine, because of that lack of rain, the drought, he allowed, or he performed a miracle through God, that a bowl of flour and a jar of oil did not go empty, but continued to supply food for that widow and her family, I believe. And so that was a great miracle. Now, that widow and her son, I believe. And then in 1 Kings 18, it describes a showdown between Baal and God, where Elijah said, if you're going to serve Baal, serve Baal, or if you're going to serve God, but you should choose the true God, is what his point was. And he had a sacrifice to prove it to him, and laid on it wood for the fire and the sacrifice, and poured water on it, and asked God to call down fire on the sacrifice. And God did that, and it was a great and mighty miracle. And ended up, Elijah killed the prophets of Baal. And so it was a showdown between Baal and God, who was the true God. And because Elijah's faith, it showed that God was the one true God. And he was on the Mount Horeb, and you may have heard this story, that there was fire and an earthquake and a great wind, and God was not in those, but there was this small voice or a gentle breeze. I forget exactly how it says it, but Elijah recognized that as being from God, and God spoke to him about what he was to do. And so sometimes you hear people say that God was in the still small voice, and Elijah heard God in that still small voice. All right, he parted the waters of the Jordan with his mantle, and he and Elisha, or I know Elisha did afterwards, but he parted the waters of the Jordan, and he and Elisha crossed over the Jordan on dry land, which is a great miracle. And he was taken up in a whirlwind after a chariot of fire came, I think, divided he and Elisha, maybe, I can't remember. But anyway, going back onto the original train of thought, why did the scribes say that Elijah comes first? Well, one thing is the prophecy found in Malachi 4, 5, and 6. It says there, and that's in the Old Testament part of the Bible, and I believe it would be dated about 4 centuries before Christ, but I'm not positive on the exact dating. But it says, "Behold, I am going to send to you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. He will restore the hearts of the fathers to their children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, so that I will not come and smite the land with a curse." This is why the Jews have that tradition about opening the door for Elijah, because of this passage. And God is speaking and says, "Behold, I'm going to send to you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord." And it's a prophecy before the end that Elijah was going to come back. Now, Jesus was speaking, or Jesus was up on a mountain before he was going to, not long before he was going to die on the cross. And he went up on a mountain, they call this the Transfiguration. And while he was on that mountain, behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them. There was Peter, James, and John up on the mountain with Christ. And Jesus had Moses and Elijah talking with him, and the nature of his face changed to where they saw him shine like the sun, and his garments became white as light. And the disciples were terrified, and afterwards they came down from the mountain. And Jesus said, "Tell the vision to no man, or to no one, until the Son of Man has risen from the dead." And his disciples asked him, "Why then do the scribes say that Elijah must come first?" And he answered them and said, "Elijah is coming and will restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah already came, and they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they wished. so also the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he had spoken to them about John the Baptist. So, Jesus says that Elijah, or they asked him, why do they say Elijah must come first? And Jesus said Elijah is coming and will restore all things. And he also says, though, but I say to you, Elijah already came. Now, and then they understood him to be talking about John the Baptist. So, if you understand this, if you break this down, he's saying Elijah, in this passage, is pointing to the fact that Elijah has come is going to come 3 times, or it's talking about 3 times Elijah is on the earth. One time was Elijah that was recorded back in like we read in 1 Kings as a prophet. Another time is that Elijah already came. Jesus is talking about Elijah already came, and they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they wished. And what he's talking about is Elijah coming as John the Baptist. And then, but he also says Elijah is coming and will restore all things. That's pointing to a time in the future from when Jesus is speaking to him, because he says Elijah is coming and will restore all things. So let's talk a little bit about the fact that Elijah came as John the Baptist. First off, let's hear what Jesus says. You know, it says there that the disciples understood him to talk about John the Baptist. Let's say they were mistaken about that understanding. Well, let's hear what Jesus said. He was talking about John the Baptist, and this is in Matthew 11:12 through 15. He's talking about John the Baptist, and we're going to cut into this conversation. He says, from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and violent men take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if you are willing to accept it, John himself is Elijah who was to come. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. And so, it's hard to get around the fact, first off, when it says John, all the prophets and the law prophesied until John, he's talking about John the Baptist. That whole passage is talking about John the Baptist. And he says very clearly, if you are willing to accept it, John himself is Elijah who was to come. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. And so, you know, I'm only so intelligent, but I do know when I'm hit over the head with something very clearly that is very pointed, that he is talking about John the Baptist was Elijah, or Elijah was John the Baptist. Now, there is one thing that brings maybe brings some doubt, is one time when some people were talking to John the Baptist about who he was. They asked him, and this is in John 1:21, they asked him, what then, are you Elijah? And he says, I am not. And are you the prophet? And he answered, no. Then they said to him, who are you, so that we may give an answer to those who sent us? What do you say about yourself? He said, I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, as Isaiah the prophet said. Now the thing is, though, I believe that John the Baptist was mistaken, because it's like, whose word are you going to take? John the Baptist or Jesus Christ? And we know that there's no false word that ever came from Jesus Christ. And again, I'll read it to you. He says, if you're willing to accept it, John himself is Elijah who was to come. And so I just think that John the Baptist was mistaken. So let's see. By the way, Gabriel, when John the Baptist was born, before he was born, he declared to Zacharias, his father, about the role of John the Baptist. And he says, it is he who will go as a forerunner before him in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children, and the disobedient to the attitude of the righteous, so as to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Now here's the thing. What we read in Malachi, what it's talking about is Elijah is supposed to come before the great and notable or terrible day of the Lord. And it says he will restore the hearts of the fathers to their children, and the hearts of their children to the fathers. That was in the Old Testament in Malachi. So one of the roles of Elijah coming back is that role of Elijah, that he's to come first, and we're talking about sometime in our future. Elijah's going to come, restore all things, and turn the hearts of the fathers back to the sons. And as Gabriel explained, what that means is for the disobedient to turn to the attitude of the righteous. And so that's going to happen before or sometime in our future. He's going to come first and restore all things. And when it says restore all things, it's talking about spiritual things, I think. The relationship of man to God. And so it's going to be a great thing that we're going to have that prophet Elijah come to do this. And also, I'm not going to get into it right now, but you know how Elijah prayed and withheld rain for 3.5 years from that area, maybe the whole known world. But if you read about the two witnesses in Revelation, one of the things they're going to prophesy for around 3.5 years, and they have power to withhold rain during the time of their prophecy. And so it may very well be, and I believe so, and I believe God showed me that one of those two witnesses would be Elijah, and the other one it would follow, just like as happened at the Mount of Transfiguration, that Elijah and Moses were speaking to Jesus, that the other one may very well be Moses. So I hope I didn't bungle that too much, but I'm trying to explain as clearly as I can that Elijah is to come first, and there are many prophecies yet to be fulfilled, and that is one of them. As it says, he is coming and will restore all things, and that Elijah already came, and that was John the Baptist. By the way, that's important about John the Baptist being Elijah, because to the Jews, that would give Jesus legitimacy in their eyes. That Elijah came before Jesus and foretold of him. And also, this last time, he's going to be a voice of one crying out in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, as Isaiah the prophet said. So he's going to fulfill that role too. So I hope that helps, and I hope this is used by God for His will. Thank you. Bye.